Very tough questions to start always. Are you a coffee drinker?
Just decaf with a lot of cream and some sweetener.
Just decaf. Now, were you at some time a caffeinated coffee drinker?
I really wasn't. Dr.
Okay.
Pepper,
Dr. Pepper?
Waco, Texas, Dr. Pepper Museum, all that kind of stuff. I love Dr. Pepper.
Okay. What about favorite food?
Oh my gosh, anything.
Anything?
Oh, favorite food. I mean, given my age now a little bit more, I like a lot of fish. But I would say growing up, I mean, it was steaks and hamburgers
Yeah.
for sure all the time. Yeah.
Good. What about favorite band or musician or
Chicago.
Chicago?
Yes. But I got to see my first live concert was the Beatles.
Really?
Twice.
Wow.
Once in Dallas and once in Kansas City. Yeah. Very cool. Lots of screaming, lots of yelling. But my favorite band of all time is probably the group Chicago.
Now, when you went to see the Beatles, I got to ask, what was that like?
Well, I just mentioned it a little bit. There was a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, and that was a little disconcerting because I was like 7 or 8 years old, or maybe 8 or 9,
Yeah.
64, 65 in their 19s. And that was a little disconcerting to me because I just wanted to listen to the music because it was like, oh my gosh, they're actually here and real. And because we had the record player and we would play their records. So, but it was really cool. I mean, they were so gifted.
Did you know at the time, or did people know at the time how incredibly huge they were becoming?
Right. They had been on that Ed Sullivan's show.
Yeah.
And so that was the special thing. And it was at the Dallas Convention Center. And I think that building is still standing. And then we also got to see it in what we would call the old Kansas City stadium where the Chiefs and the Royals play, or the Athletics played baseball back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah.
So the first time you saw him was 64?
I think it was 1964.
And then the second time?
Probably right there, not shortly thereafter in Kansas City. Probably I want to say it was the same year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And could you notice any difference between the two?
Well, one was I do remember this. The one was in the convention center, so it was a more closed-in environment. The other was it was a baseball field, I think, at that point. So it may have been late summer, early fall is what I'm thinking. And that was more diffuse. And that's probably retrospective, just picking up stuff. Yeah.
Got it.
So.
What about favorite city in the world to visit?
London.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you love about London?
They speak English. Partly it's our heritage as a family, last name of Hunt. We have relatives that we can trace back coming over at specific times. We've got that story to tell, that connection. Just love a whole lot of things about England. The countryside, got to travel there as a young person, got to go to Wimbledon, tennis, saw Yvonne Goolagong win Wimbledon. People ask me very often, and maybe I'm digressing, but what's the most exciting sporting event I've ever been to? Her winning Wimbledon,
Wow.
Seeing her beat Billie Jean King and Margaret Court back to back. She was 19 years old. And then Stan Smith, the American, won the men. So it was pretty exciting to see that. But I just remember the amazement in the crowd. It was just unbelievable. But going into England, to just going to Stratford-upon-Avon, seeing Shakespeare, things like that, the Globe Theatre, the London Philharmonic Symphony, those sorts of things, just the culture, Stonehenge, all the things. It's just, there's a lot on that little isle. Yeah.
Where did you grow up? What was it like growing up? Tell us a little bit about childhood.
It was hot growing up. We grew up in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And I was just speaking earlier to some of the staff here that's helping you put this on. Went to an all-boys school, 3rd through 12th grade, Episcopal affiliation. So we had Episcopal priests on site, and it was an all-boys school, so it was very formal, uniforms. We had an English headmaster when I first arrived there, Christopher Beresford. We had a French dean of students. We had, I remember biology, Sir Arthur Douglas, we called him, but he said, well prepared, not sad nor vexed, pen, pencil, line, paper, notebook, and text. But so I got a beautiful formal education. But as far as we did sports, things like that, played in the street a lot or in the fields around the house, things like that. And then for me, obviously, I got involved in music at some point. Being in an all-boys school, we were given instruments to play and things like that, learned to read music and things like that. So growing up for me was a lot of play, a lot of sports, but I got exposed to some of the more beautiful things in life.
What was your favorite sport growing up?
Baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think we just played it outside. It was so easy to play in somebody's front yard or in the street or whatever. But I wasn't particularly actually that good at it, but I've always enjoyed it.
What is your favorite sport today?
I'm supposed to say football. I love football, but I still, there's something about baseball.
Yeah.
And then I would say tennis. I enjoy, my wife can profess that I was very hooked on the US Open recently.
What did you think of the US Open this year?
I was just so excited to see the young players. One of them, an Italian, his last name is Sinner, which I thought was such an interesting last name. I'd followed him a little bit. He's so gifted. I didn't know much about the Spaniard that ultimately won, Alcaraz or something like that.
Yep.
But just got taken by him and his energy and things like that, and just how he didn't wilt. Really loved that. Watched, always appreciated the Venus Williams, Serena. And so we watched some of their final, matches just to respect for what they've been for the game of tennis. But I like the US Open. I'd like to go to it at some point, but, so I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. What are you most excited about in your life today?
Oh my gosh. So we have a beautiful family, lots of friendships through our church and men's groups, things like that. But just, I think now, given the age I'm at, which is getting into the mid 60s, grandchildren, that, and actually seeing our children be married, have children, still some under, they're considering marriage or whatever their relationships, just seeing their lives unfold. It's kind of a wonderful blessing.
Yeah.
It really is. I'd say for us that, my wife Rita says, we've retired. We just want to enjoy the grandchildren. And I think that, I don't mean that as a cliche. I mean it sincerely.
Yeah.
I had a grandfather that really cherished us, and I remember so many memories with him. And, I think it's a special thing.
How is being a grandfather different to what you thought it would be like?
Actually, some of the grandkids will come running to you saying, help me from my parents, help me. No, I'm teasing a little bit there. You know what it is? What I notice is that when I'm around them and there are the kid things that come out, just wrestling with their emotions or the struggles in life, as a grandparent, you're not nearly as reactive. You're able to be sort of a steady influence. You don't feel that need to sort of step in and try to correct them or guide them or, get that edge with them. You sort of take it in and listen, and then you say, hey, have you thought of this? Or what about that? Or I think we're calmer.
Yeah.
Calmer, for sure.
Would you advise parents to adopt that calmness a little bit more?
I definitely would. Definitely. Don't get into the reactivity. Go ahead and let it ride. The fancy phrase I've heard once is roll with the resistance, right? But, and I think choices are good for kids, just say, well, gosh, there's another way you could do this, and kind of help them. But I think if you react with vitriol to vitriol with vitriol, it doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't work. We all know that.
Yeah.
But there's a calmness. There really is a calmness and a sweetness and a pleasantness of just being present, So it's kind of cool.
That is. What, I know your faith is important to you. Was there a moment in your life where you feel like the faith became your own?
I would say for myself, and that's just, I think everybody's journey is personal. If I think, most recently, the death of my mother, which was just heart-wrenching. But if I go back, I think my mother's presence throughout my life was somebody that was planting seeds. It might have been a Bible verse, on a cabinet, or the insistence that you're going to go to Sunday school, even though I will confess that we cut sometimes Sunday school. We just go to the playground and play. But there was that sort of hand, if you will, walking through with us to say, hey, this is important. Now, we may not have thought so, or we may have argued, or we may have just been indifferent. But there would be different times in life. One was the death of a stepfather, going into a Catholic church and sort of being upset with him, way too young, didn't take care of his health. Why did I go in a Catholic church, right? I don't know to this day. Reading, I love to read. And so just finding some things like by Father John Hardin was very helpful for me. I think there was just a lot of seeds planted, meeting good clergy, solid clergy, if you would say that. And I would say that would be true in the Methodist Church. I can remember vividly the 2 Episcopal priests at the school that I was at. I mean, those are the 2 that I remember, right? And then just encountering Catholic priests along the way, different people like that. It was like, wow, these are wonderful witnesses. And I just think a lot of seeds were planted. And then I just think sometimes the school of hard knocks, going
Sure.
through some difficult things in your own life, some of it your own manufacturing, some of your own doing. And I think ultimately trying to just take responsibility for that, but not beating yourself up. I think that's the key. Take responsibility, but it's not you totally.
How do you find that balance?
The balance now is really the understanding in your life that God's forgiveness rules. But it rules in such a tender, wonderful way. And what I mean by that is he is present. He's always present. And he loves us, and he loves us more than we love ourselves. He loves us in spite of ourselves. And to understand that as a Catholic now, just the power of going to the sacrament of confession, there's that desire to relate to another person, to tell, hey, I've been struggling with this, or I did this, and it could be any number of things. It could be gossip or any number of things you can think of. But I think right now the balance is learning to forgive yourself and trusting in God. I think that's where people, like, he really has forgiven you. Are there consequences? Absolutely. Disappointingly sometimes. But I think learning to forgive yourselves. And I always remember this line from a diary of a mad black woman. How do you know if you've forgiven someone? And it's, you have a chance to get even, but you don't. So letting go. And I know some of this sounds like cliches to people, but it's reality. It really is. It's the truth.
Well, cliches, that's how cliches become cliches, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so, yeah.